take a look at this model. We are going to explore the pulmonary, let's let it focus, pulmonary and systemic circuit. So I'm going to go ahead and take these lobes of the lungs out, and we're going to break down what's going on here. Brought to you by Curious Randland. So one of the things we want to do is we want to focus on the heart, the pulmonary circuit, and the systemic circuit. Now I've done some earlier videos where I actually looked through this picture, but let's kind of follow what's happening here. We're going to have the left atrium, the right atrium. We're going to talk about the pulmonary and the systemic. So blood is going to come from the body to the right atrium, open through this valve, and I want to focus on the valves using the models. Blood's going to go to the lungs. It's going to be deoxygenated when it gets there. It's going to be oxygenated when it leaves. It's dropping off carbon dioxide, picks up oxygen, goes back to the left atrium now, goes through this valve, and fills up the ventricle, and it's going to go to the body. I made another video where I focused on this, and I'm going to keep this up for as I'm pointing out different parts. So first, I'm just going to pause for a second and make a quick adjustment. Quick review, the basic parts. This is a handout that my students fill out, and they've got to be able to walk through the chambers, the valves, the tubes. The chambers, the valves, the tubes. So we want to know everything that's going on here. So pretty much I'm going to walk through this picture, but I'm going to show it with models. Then we'll come back and look at the different valves. So let's leave it here. So here's, first thing let's take a look at is we've got bronchial, this is the lungs, this is where the gas exchange occurs, all right? And this, let's see if we make that connection. Let's flip it over here. Let's look at a posterior view and see these are pulmonary veins, these are pulmonary arteries, right? Artery, vein. Okay, so the blood's coming here, it's going to do the gas exchange with the alveoli, and then the blood's going to come back. So I'm going to go ahead and use a different model, and we'll come back to this. So let's pause for a second. So look at what we have. We've got chambers, and we have a septum that separates it, and we've got two of the four valves that we need to know. So if you look here, let's walk through what goes into this chamber and this chamber first. Because blood drains into the atrium and then goes to the ventricles. A lot of people will learn it, and I'll do it as well. We'll talk about 1, 2, 3, 4 like it's a sequence, but it's really the blood is going into the atrium, and then it's going to go into the ventricle, and it's going to be pumped out to the body. This valve and this valve are two different types of valves. This valve, the atrioventricular valve, separates the atrium from the ventricle. The semilunar is a valve that allows things to leave the ventricle. So I think with the models, I want to go back and forth between this one and the model. So let's first talk about what's going on in this chamber here. Let's flip it over. Let's get an idea. All right. So first, let's talk about the right atrium. Blood's going to be coming from below the head and neck, from the vena cava, and from the head and neck, the other vena cava. So superior, inferior vena cava. That's one vessel that we need to know. All right. Another vessel would be what happens when blood leaves the heart. When the blood that first gets to the heart also leaves. So what it has to do is go down into this valve. So this is the first of the two types, atrioventricular valves. This is the right side, so that's a tricuspid. I always remember tri-right. And this is the bicuspid, also called the mitral valve. So blood is going to, if you kind of follow the reverse of this, so blood's coming down through this valve. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second and adjust the focus. All right, there we go. Much better. Okay, so blood is going to go from the atrium to the ventricle. All right, blood's going to go from the atrium to the ventricle. Now how does it leave? Let's talk about that. So first, how did blood get here? We already said the vena cava. On this side, the left, you have the pulmonary veins coming back from the lungs. So that's your pulmonary circuit. And you see these two holes here. That's this right here. Now these two, if I can zoom in here, can't really see it. There's the holes here and here. I have to move the valve out of the way to see it. Okay, so blood's now in the atrium. They're going to contract and squeeze blood through these valves. So these valves open. When the ventricle is filled, these are going to close. Now, here's your other valve. Here's your other valve. So when blood is going to leave through the pulmonary artery, that means it's going to go to the lungs and deoxygenate, take that deoxygenated blood and return it with oxygenated blood. So this semilunar valve, so blood goes here and then out. Okay. Now, blood's here. This is the aortic. This is the pulmonary. So let's just say this again. Semilunar valve, semilunar valve. Blood is going to go from this ventricle up here. This is the aorta, up to the body, and then this is going to actually descend down, and I'll show you that in the model, the other model. So that's blood leaving, and it goes through the semilunar valves. Pulmonary semilunar valve, aortic semilunar valve. So that's kind of like all the vessels. You know what goes in to the chambers? Vena cava, pulmonary vein. What leaves from the ventricles? Pulmonary artery or aorta. And that's kind of all the tubes used for the pulmonary and the systemic circuit. So I made a video where I highlighted all this. So here's pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins all going to number 3. All right, vena cava goes to number 1. This atrioventricular valve, blood drains through here, the tri-right, tricuspid. This would be the mitral valve, also called the bicuspid. Now, these valves shut, and then watch what goes from number 2 to the lungs. To the lungs. Number 4 goes to the body, here, and on this picture you see this is that descending colon. Descending aorta, not colon, sorry. Descending aorta. So I'm going to just show one more view from the other model, and we'll close this up. So just to finish, all right, so we have this is your trachea, your bronchioles. All right, see this? That's this little branch that's going to descend. This is the descending aorta. And if you want to even further look, let's see if it, there we go, right here. This is the aorta. Now, notice we're in the thoracic cavity. The diaphragm separates the abdominal cavity. When we're at this point, right here, this is the abdominal aorta. And we can trace it back to here. Let's flip this up. Let's trace it back to here. Here's the same tube going back, and then it's going up here. Okay? And that's gonna be your blood supply. Remember, arteries go away, so that's what's gonna send the oxygenated blood below the diaphragm. This right here, these branches are going up to the head and neck. This will go down. This will go down. This is also becomes your carotid that goes up to your brain. So, alrighty, that's pretty much a short little video on the pulmonary and the systemic circuit using models.